Una mujer erótica. Una mujer erótica.
Hola, mi gente. This is Jackie Nuñez for Latin Waves. And that was just what we saw was Tito Rodriguez Jr. and Mujer Erótica. And I want to introduce to you the Tito Rodriguez Jr. Hello,
Hey,
how?
hey, Jackie.
Tito.
Thank you for having me on your show. I'm honored to be here today.
Very nice seeing you on Saturday for the new Palladium in the new millennium, the Palladium.
Yeah,
How do
right.
you feel performing at the Lehman Center there?
It was great because we don't, oddly enough, we don't get to perform that much in New York. So to be able to perform at Lehman and in the Bronx, which is the Condado de la Salsa, was a great experience. And we had a great time. We felt the crowd enjoyed the concert and was very enthusiastic. So I'm very, very proud of what we did that night. I thought it was a great evening.
Yes, it was. And I think it was very much needed because you guys haven't done that in a while. And everybody knows who your fathers are. I mean, of course, Tito Rodriguez, Tito Puente, and Machito. So that was way overdue. That's how I feel that it was way overdue. But I really want to concentrate more on you because everyone knows your legendary father. And did you decide to get into music because your father naturally was? Or, I mean, he was a
Um,
percussionist before he was a singer, no?
yeah, he's an excellent bongo player and timbale player. And I would venture to say that, when I grew up in Little Neck, New York, I was always exposed to the music because we had a finished basement in our home in Little Neck, New York. And the band used to come and rehearse there all the time. So I've been around this music my whole life. And he was the one that actually, when I showed an interest in playing drums, started to teach me the Latin rhythms on the bongo and the timbal. And so I kind of caught the fever then, but I can't really honestly
Mm,
say that I knew I was going to be a musician at that time. But, you know, having taken private lessons and through my teens and before, um, I was gradually getting more and more and more into it. And then obviously when we lived in Puerto Rico and it's a television show, I used to see all the rehearsals with the orchestra there too. So this has been ingrained in me for many, many years. I probably was listening to this music when I was in the womb. So, yeah, I mean, so it wasn't until he passed away was in 1974 when we had the record, TR record label, that my
Right.
brother-in-law, Phil DiCarlo, who was the vice president of the company, said, hey, why don't we experiment and why don't we do an album and call it Curious to see if people would be curious as to what, we're doing here. And that's how the name of the album came about. And
Mhm.
I had Jose Alberto at the time on there. I had Ruben Blades and Alberto Santiago and doing coro, and it was a really fun experience to do that.
And that what led you to your two other albums, right? Eclipse
Well,
and
yeah. Then there was kind of a lull there. I was very young when I did Curious, so I can't actually say that I was totally into it at that time. So I kind of like needed a break to find myself. And then Eclipse came about approximately when the Mambo Kings movie came out. The owners that had bought TR Records called me up and said, "Hey, listen, this Mambo Kings thing is generating a lot of interest. Would you be interested in doing concerts with your dad's music?" And I said, knowing that he had the label, I said, "Yeah, I mean, I definitely would love to do that because nobody's playing the music, but um, only if I get a record deal because I want to record again." And he said, "Okay, let's do it." And that's how Eclipse came about. And Eclipse was a really big hit. I mean, it sold very, very well.
now you were also like of the Sally Jesse Raphael show. I know she asked you a few questions. You got to play with Tito Puente Sr., of course.
Yeah, right.
That
That
experience
was
for you.
oh, it was really great. It was the first time I ever played with Tito, and it was funny when I got there. We had to get to the studio at about 6 o'clock in the morning, and so he really didn't know
Oh,
if I could play or what I could do. And it was kind of funny. He was sort of a little aggressive, like, "Well, hey kid, what are you doing here? Can you play?" And I was like, "Oh man, this is gonna be a long day, right?" But I think my father was probably looking over me because when his band boy arrived, his band boy forgot to bring his cymbals and his sticks, and he had to borrow my sticks and my cymbals, and it neutralized the whole situation. And then,
okay.
and I think
That,
I, he had a lot of, he had a gout problem. He told me in his foot, and he says, "Listen, I need you to rehearse my band." He goes, I can't stand up. I'm in a lot of pain." And so I helped him out, and we really bonded. It was great. But when I got there, it was like, "Oh no, here we go." But he was a great guy. We talked about a lot. We talked about the Palladium days, and he was really very kind to me after that. And from then on, whenever I would see Tito on the street, he'd give me a big hug and he'd pinch me on the cheek and say, "Hey kid, how you doing?" And it was a really cool experience.
that's pretty amazing because, you don't always get to, not many people could say that they played with their icons or people they actually looked up to.
Yeah, it
And
was.
be on a show together, especially that. Not too many people can say that. Now, speaking of shows, your father used to have a show. Um, what did you think of that show when he had his own show? Because he had many great guests on his show.
Oh yeah. Well, my father had a variety show in Puerto Rico where he recorded 31-hour shows on Rico Vision Channel 7 in Puerto Rico, and that was really. I was a cameraman on that show when I was 14 years old. All the technicians took me under their wing because I love to being around studio and all the music and everything. And but anyway,
This is
I,
your
I
So,
Yeah. I was witnessing history and didn't really know it at the time because he had hired Ray Santos and Rene Hernandez, who you know are legendary, were legendary, and still are
mhm.
legendary arrangers, the staff arrangers for the television show. So I got to experience seeing them work, arrange the songs, and how they approached the rehearsals. I saw all the band rehearsals before the taping of the show, and I mean, a typical day, we would start at 9 a.m. and finish at 3 a.m. for my dad. And I would go there after school and end up being in the studio with them, especially on a Friday. I would stay there. And I got to see him do all the segments. I got to see all these unbelievable stars come on the show: Tony Bennett, Sammy Davis, Shirley Bassey, Sarah Vaughan, you name it. He had everyone that was appearing in the hotels in Puerto Rico at the time. You got to remember, in '68, Puerto Rico was like Las Vegas. So all those stars that were coming down to the island were told, hey, you got to do this guy's show. He's got an unbelievable orchestra, and it's the best show on the island. And lo and behold, they showed up. They showed up. But looking back on it, I mean that was an education in itself, to see my dad work and to see the people around him work. And I'll never forget that. It was awesome.
That is amazing. Now,
Yeah.
what song of your father's would be favorite to you or iconic to you, other than the Inolvidable that's everybody's? Is there anything special to you?
You know what? I can't really narrow it down. I mean, there's many songs that I like, but to pick a favorite, I really can't do it. I can pick a favorite album. All right. To me, my favorite album that he recorded was an album that was entitled Estoy como nunca. To me, that is the best up tempo, big band, bolero album that he recorded. A lot of people have their opinion on it, but to me, that album I loved that album ever since he brought they were called acetates back then, home, because he used to bring those home before the albums would be pressed. And yeah, that album sticks out. And then the next album, there's three albums, but that one was my favorite. My favorite string album was an Olvidable that he recorded shortly before he passed away in London, with strings. And of course, the Luis Ramirez album. So those three albums really stick out in my mind as,
Right.
what I liked. What I liked.
I want to clear the air for the general public. Now, I think it was all a hype, and is it true that the so-called rivalry between your father and Tito Puente never existed?
No, it absolutely existed. And the one of the main reasons the top billing problem came was that they both had recorded on Tico, they both recorded on RCA together when they were independent. And what caused the top billing riff was that my father was outselling Tito Puente in record sales. He even got an award from George Goldner from Tico at the Palladium, recognizing his record sales. And because of that, my father did not want to relinquish top billing, and it became a problem. And they couldn't agree. They couldn't agree on it. And then the promoters would say, well, listen, why don't we put you guys on the same line? And then it was like, well, whose name's going to be first on the same line? So it was a very, very real problem they had with the top billing. But when you look at it, they both always tried to outdo each other with their recordings. They raised the bar musically. And because of it, I think that the listening public and the dancers are the winners, because both those bands were incredible. And they were just raising the bar constantly to outdo each other. And, you know, look at what's come of it. Okay. I'm playing arrangements for my dad that are 40, 50, some maybe 60 years old, and they still swing. They were very ahead of their time musically. And, you know, what can I say? But there
In
were,
your albums, and like, yeah, of course you had Curious, and then you had Eclipse. Now, between Eclipse and Transición, did you try to model it after your father's kind of sound?
well, you know, definitely there's a formula there that my dad used that I use. And I think my music is a little bit different, but it is true to the traditional way of mambo. Okay. Because I use a lot of the arrangers that had worked with him. People may not be aware, but I was using Ray Santos for many, many years. Ray Santos did a lot of work for me in arranging, but it was always my style, you know, and that's why I would always record on my albums. I always record one or two numbers that my father did, but with a new arrangement. I never just play something, you know, in the original way that he did it. I try to add a new twist to it. But there's definitely a formula that he laid down that I follow. And that formula is make music for the dancers. If the dancers can't dance to it, then it's not happening.
That it's not happening, right?
Yeah.
He went through, like your father went through a lot of progression in the music. Do you see yourself going that way too? Because I mean, obviously it was mambo. He even did boogaloo and
Yeah.
Is there any other genres that you would consider doing?
Well, you know, I have produced an artist. Her name was Diane Chirot, and it was basically, well, this was going back now. This was before, or was it after? It was after Curious. It was a disco album. So and it had violins and everything. It was pretty amazing. I right now pretty much stick to salsa. You know. I've thought about doing maybe a Latin jazz album. That's one of the things I would like to do, just do a Latin jazz with no vocals. But right now I'm kind of like, I'm having pretty good success doing what I'm doing. Transición did very, very well. And
Yeah,
people expect
like
that
to
from me.
play
I think
something.
that, yeah, I think that if
Mhm.
I venture away from what I'm doing, I may lose some people, and I don't want to do that. You know, people get stuck on what you're doing, and they expect you to stay true to form.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I want to play one more from your other album. Anna, you can play it. Okay. What is the? I have the second one there. Don't mention which one is it. Um, which one did I have and forgot? Stop doing this. Play from the second album from the Transición.
Play Volver by Gilberto.
Se bailaba salsa, digan lo que digan, lo mío es salsa.
Cabiosile, mi chango. A la li, la lo, la lo, la a la. Avísale a mi contrario que aquí estoy yo. Avísale a mi contrario que aquí estoy yo. Que venga para que aparecie dulce cantar. Después no quiero que diga que di la rumba y no lo invité. Que venga para que aparezca en sonoridad. Avísale a mi contrario que aquí estoy yo. Que venga para que aparezca en dulce cantar. Después no quiero que diga que di la rumba y no lo invité.
Are there any other future plans or future things that are you planning to do?
Oh, for coming up, yeah, next year is would have been his 100th birthday, so we're doing concerts. I'm going to be doing a tribute album with him, and I'm trying to get somebody to sing on that album. When we're working out the final details. I'm not allowed to mention it, but I think pretty much everybody knows who it might be. And also, I'm in the middle of writing a book. I'm more than 50% done with it. It's going to be a book about my parents, living with them, and my mom's life, my dad's life, and all the way up to the Palladium years and all the struggles they had and the good times with, the woes of the music business, and up until the end to his final performance in Madison Square Garden. So it's going to be an unbelievable book with a lot of information that will clear up a lot of questions that people have. And it's going to correct a lot of facts as well. Yeah. It's long overdue. I want to be able to. There's been a lot of books written about him, but none of them are accurate. And this book's going to be accurate.
Better coming straight from the source that lived it, that been there with him.
Exactly.
Well, I want to say congratulations on your nomination for the East Coast Music Hall of Fame. I will hope to see you there in June.
Thank you. Yeah.
I want to ask you, huh?
Oh, I'm sorry. You broke up.
I wanted to congratulate you on the East Coast Music Hall of Fame on your nomination, and I hope to be seeing you in June.
Oh yeah.
The other thing is, I've asked this to many musicians, but I want to ask you your opinion. Our music basically does very well in South America, in Europe, in many other countries, probably more so than here. Why do you suppose it's that way? And what do you think we can do to change that?
Well, that's a great question. It seems to me that in Europe, well, my biggest market happens to be Europe, more than anywhere else, and they're very inquisitive about the music. They're inquisitive about the history of the music, and they love to
Educate.
dance. And they love to dance. So when you want to know about the history of the music and you delve into that first instead of just picking up a CD and playing it and not knowing anything, it puts a whole different perspective on what you're doing, and they really appreciate artists. They can relate to them, and that's where I've seen when I go to Europe. I mean, I'll do seminars before the night of the concert and everything, and the questions that they ask me are really like excellent questions about the history of the music, and I don't see that here in the United States. I really don't, and I don't really know why. Yeah, I mean, I'll be the
I
first
guess
one to admit because
they're very well educated, like you said, about the music. They
they
love it.
are
I understand it's also part of their curriculum. It's in the school program, so they're very well. Like
right.
they'll know who the author is. They'll know who besides who wrote it, the singer. They'll know from down to the influences of whoever that artist is. They go really deep into that. But I think
And
it's so important.
no, it isn't, and I
It's
know
so alive.
it's very important. And in Europe, they have excellent music programs. I mean, they're into playing real musicians. It seems to me now the culture is electronics, and I don't know. I think that we're losing our way by cutting music programs from schools and teaching
So
people how to read and write music and play an instrument, a real instrument. And it's sad to see that's happened. Thank God that's not happening in Puerto
right.
Rico. Puerto Rico is like Europe. Puerto Rico, they study music, they they learn how to play together, and it's a whole different ballgame.
Sure is. Well, Tito, I want to thank you for being on this show. We got to do this again because, especially when you get this book done, I definitely want to be the one to interview you about it. So keep me in
Oh
mind for
yeah,
that.
but
And
listen,
thank you
but
again. It was a pleasure,
Jackie,
too short for me, but we'll do this again.
thank you, and
So thanks again.
thanks Jackie for having me on your show, Latin Waves, and I want to thank the public and for supporting my music for all these years.
Thank you. So this is Jackie Nuñez signing out for Latin Waves.